Editorial writer with the Wall Street Journal, former New York Times columnist Bob Herbert is also a distinguished senior fellow at Demos. Bob, you're not buying it.
No. One, I think these are two separate issues. Employers unable to find qualified workers, and then the much larger problem of all the unemployed in this country. If you have trouble finding workers in your company, you pay higher wages, as far as I'm concerned. And eventually, if those wages get high enough, you'll be deluged with applicants.
What about training? You train the workers yourself?
On-the-job training. I mean, that's been the way of corporate workers in this country since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, it seems to me.
Stephen, you know, it's pretty clear there are shortages of elite workers in science and technology. There's really no question about that. Listen to what Facebook's Chief Operating Officer, Sheryl Sandberg, told the president earlier this year.
Every company I know, my own included, we're desperately trying to hire more people, but it has to be people who have the technical skills to meet the jobs we need, and it gets harder and harder to find them.
All sorts of industries, Stephen, are complaining they can't find qualified workers. A Manpower Group survey says employers report shortages in accounting and finance, in sales reps, in IT staff, engineering, and the hardest job to fill, skilled trades, jobs like plumbers, electricians, and carpenters. So, Stephen, why not pay more or do more on-the-job training to fill those jobs? You got a big group of people looking for work.
Look, I totally agree that the best kind of job training is on-the-job training, and that's why getting people back into the workforce is the most important thing we can do right now to get people to have more skills and, by the way, higher wages. And, Christine, when you ask the question, why aren't these employers paying higher wages to get the skilled workers, the problem is that the pool of people they're picking from just don't have the basic skills. I think partly this is a failure of our education system over the last 30 years. Partly it's a question of whether we're properly getting our kids ready for the workforce. For example, you mentioned, where I live, you can't get a plumber, you can't get an electrician, you can't get a carpenter, and those are the kinds of jobs. Maybe we need more emphasis, and I'm interested in Bob's view on this, on the kind of vocational skills that used to be taught in schools and community colleges that aren't available now to kids.
Stephen, unions have traditionally provided training ground for their members and workers. Maybe unions are a solution to our skills mismatch.
Well, the problem there, Christine, is only about 7% of private sector workers are in unions nowadays. So, look, the role of unions has actually been shrinking for the last 30 years. I'm not sure that trend is going to be discontinued. I just think we need more emphasis in schools and even, by the way, in colleges. You know, you've got kids that are taking courses in gender studies and sociology and things like that, and they're coming out of, after 4 years spending $150,000 or $200,000 on a college degree, and you know what? What they've learned is not very applicable to the job market.
I'm not sure how many gender studies majors there are, actually, but I'll look that up for you. I don't think there are that many, really. Go ahead.
Why is it the obligation of the public school systems or the colleges to provide workers for specific industries who are having trouble staffing their organizations? It seems to me that that's a problem of the industries and the companies themselves.
Bob, can I just interrupt you there, because it's a good point. I agree with you. Look, what schools should do is just get people knowledgeable, and the problem with our schools right now, when I talk to employers, Christine, around the country, they say a lot of the kids, their reading skills, their math skills, their science skills are deficient, and that's, Bob, where I think the schools have failed.
But no one disagrees about that. The problem is right now, companies need workers, and right now, workers need jobs. So trying to do a 12-year or 20-year makeover of the public school system, we can talk about it hypothetically and how it needs to be done, but it's not going to get people and companies connected right now. How do we do it? Companies like FedEx and Alcoa, they're working with community colleges to train workers. But I'll tell you, sometimes when you talk to employers, they're concerned about investing a lot of money in workers, and suddenly a fast global economy is changing the skills they need. They don't want to invest money for skills that are going to be obsolete in a year.
I have an idea for you, and
What's
I don't know if Bob will like this idea very much, but I think actually one of the things at the lower rungs of the economic ladder that is impeding people getting going in the economy is the minimum wage. And Bob, what about if we had a training wage, especially for kids under the age of 25, maybe $5 or $6 an hour, to get them in the workforce? The companies will actually give them skills, and then they can earn higher wages as they climb ladder.
That's just another subsidy for private corporations. I'm not in
I knew you would like
that
idea.
But I also think that it's important. We're overstating this mismatch problem, because even if you filled all of these jobs that we're talking about, you would still have an enormous unemployment problem.
That's true.
In this country. That's one thing. And then the second thing is, when you start talking about employers complaining that they don't have enough people with writing skills or reading skills and that sort of thing, the truth of the matter is, and I've been all over the country interviewing these people, that there are all kinds of people, college educated, many with advanced degrees, who cannot find work. So the idea that they can't read or they can't write well is just not the case.
All right, we have to leave it there. Stephen Moore, the Wall Street Journal editorial writer.
Maybe if they had a degree in engineering or something like that, they could get a job. I guess my point is they're not getting their degrees in the kind of skill-based professions where we need the jobs, Bob. That's the problem.
We'd actually discuss this later on the program. So that was what we call a deep tease, Stephen Moore. People are going to stick around so we can talk about that again. Bob Herbert from Demos. Nice.